Welcome to 20th Century Geek. Hello ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick interlude before the show starts. This is Scott Weatherly, your usual host. And I just wanted to say, this episode was recorded a little bit on the fly the other evening, so the audio quality isn't quite up to its usual standard. And there are some noises in the background from things that were going on around the studio, I should say, or 20th Century Towers. So I apologise for that, but it does not distract from the fantastic content of the show. Okay, I'm now going to hand you over to me and my new co-host. Hello listeners, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm Scott Weatherly, your regular host, and I'm joined by somebody new today, because we're going to be talking about a different topic. So we've gone back and recently we did sequels actually in the last episode. I talked about belated sequels, so this actually includes one. So I couldn't pull in anyone better than one of my oldest friends, someone who's had a soft spot for this character for many, many years, to the extent that I will be putting this on social media. 8 years ago or so, they dressed as Rambo.
You can't put that. It's been on social media.
It's been on social media. It's already out there. It's going out again. There. Throwback Thursday. So, welcome to 20th Century Geek. Gaz, welcome to 20th Century Geek.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm alright. How are you?
I'm good. You looking forward to talking Rambo?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sorry. First time and all that, but keen. That's how Carl Pilkington got started, so you know.
That's it.
Things could happen.
Yeah, just basically get on a podcast, start moaning. That's what you want to do. That's it.
I can do that.
But today, who are we talking about today?
The legendary John Rambo.
John Rambo. So I've got to put this out there before we start talking.
Yeah.
Okay. This podcast is going to contain spoilers for the Rambo series and more than likely terrible Sylvester Stallone impressions. So yeah, just to give you, if that's not your thing, you may want to leave now. But I would suggest you stick around; they may improve. So, John Rambo. Before we even get into the full details of his history and stuff, where's your roots with Rambo?
I think I actually saw, or I remember seeing First Blood Part 2 before I went back and watched First Blood. I just remember my first memory actually of Rambo is the exploding arrows in Rambo 2, and just thinking, wow.
Yeah.
At first, I'd never seen an exploding arrow before.
I don't think anyone had, to be honest.
And then secondly, it's just this dude wiping out everybody. I've got older brothers.
Yeah.
A good way older than me, so they were watching these things all the time. So I'm talking at kind of 4 or 5 years old, I was seeing these sorts of things. When was Rambo 2 out? First Blood was 82, wasn't it?
Yeah, part 2 was 85.
85, so yeah. I've probably seen it, back in those days, 2 years after its cinema release when it came out on video. So 87, I was 5.
Yeah. Well, 85 is a strong year for Stallone, because it's also the same year that Rocky IV came out. So it's the year that he won the Cold War, basically.
Yeah. Anti-communist Stallone.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Couldn't get more red, white, and blue than even Superman's like going, he's more American, isn't he? So yeah, but from a Stallone point, because you are a Stallone fan, really, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So, other than Rocky, what were you? Was Rambo your first? Actually, other than Rambo, was Rambo your first Stallone experience, or was there other earlier memories?
It all kind of blurs, but definitely Rambo, Cobra, and
Cobra.
Probably Rocky 3 were my earliest memories.
Yeah.
I think I saw Rocky 3 before Rocky 4, and I think I was more excited about that because it was Mr. T than Stallone. But obviously, when you start to link up Cobra, Rambo, Rocky, you sort of form this picture
80s
of this
Stallone.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Who is this man?
It's funny because watching these and because watching the Rambo series, and then going back and obviously you start looking at the other films that Stallone has done, especially around this era. So sort of like let's say the Rambo, the first 3 films in particular, really covers 82 to 88.
Yeah.
So it's a very 80s character. Like it's defined by the 80s. And then when you look at other things that he did, like around that era, like Stallone was, people talk about Schwarzenegger and that sort of, but really Stallone was top dog in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean when I not having the opportunity to go back and watch the films, but doing a bit of reading up on it today, and a wide opinion out there was that before Rambo, the biggest action hero was probably James Bond.
Yeah.
And so it was the character of John Rambo that spawned and gave pathway to the likes of Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis and John McClane and those sort of characters. So yeah, it was definitely.
Well, it's weird because I think we'll get into it really because like I say, let's go into if you go into like First Blood.
Yeah.
It's a really good film actually. Going back to it, I really enjoy watching it, but it's a film of two distinct halves. It's still very much got like a foot in the 70s. That sort of like that almost like grim, dour 70s movie tropes that you sort of see.
Yeah.
Everything from like French Connection to Dirty Harry and all that kind of thing. Those kinds of characters because they were the first. That was your 80s, your 70s action heroes, and then it very much has that birth of the action hero in the rest of it. Like Stallone is, he's ripped. He's a one-man army. Like he does. I never thought about it, but he does. He really kicks off the 80s and 82 with that one-man army kind of deal. Going back, so I say, what do you remember then of First Blood?
First Blood. The standout scene for me from First Blood was always the jump off the mountain into the trees. The cut on his arm, the landing on the branch, legs akimbo.
Yeah,
falling through the. That was always the standout scene, and then. Because say being a youngster, you watch those things. It's those kind of things that stick in your memory, and then going up and blowing the town up afterwards. And then when you go back and watch it when you're older, you sort of you pick up on different parts of the films, and it is that you pick up on the fact that this film couldn't be made today. We know too much about like PTSD these days. And these sort of things it could never be allowed to happen, and but it's definitely that it's just that sense of the one-man army and this man who's taken on not just the police force but the National Guard, and there's 200 men after him and he eludes them, and
it's a weird thing because watching it back, like you say, watching it with a modern sensibility. So when I sat down to watch it, I was expecting, because it's been a long time since I'd watched them all really, and in my memory I go back more to like Rambo 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Sensibility, really. So watching this, in the first 15 minutes, you are watching a veteran crumble. Like, that's what happens. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. Because it's this portrayal of PTSD.
Yeah.
It opens that he's going to visit an ex-army buddy who he finds out has got cancer and died from the chemicals that were...
Yeah.
Or Agent Orange or whatever they did over Vietnam, and there's that moment you just see his face. And he's like, there's like an acceptance of like, I'm the last one, and it's like a moment of grief, but then he just goes off, and then to be rejected again by the sheriff.
Yeah.
I forget his name now, but yeah, the guy he rejects him and says, "Oh, no, I'll give you a lift to the end of town," and he's like, "Well, I want something to eat. Why can't I have something to eat?" And he's like, "Look. We just don't want your sort here." And even I'm watching it and thinking, what's your problem? What is your problem? Like,
that's it.
All he's done is like, you're a drifter. He wants a meal. Like, he's not coming for trouble. And then when he drops him off, and then obviously when he goes, they take him into the police station, and they treat him like dirt, and you can just see it. Like all of a sudden, he's like, I'm like, someone's going to make him snap. Someone's going to make him snap. And then he has the flashbacks to the torture scenes and stuff. And I was like, there's a part of me that's like, good. Like, you kick their ass. It's all very...
Yeah. And I mean, like you say, when you go back now and you think about it and you look at it, obviously, jumping through the film, you go through the closing film when he has his breakdown and he starts talking about being spat on and called baby killer and whatever else. And this is what the soldiers who came back from Vietnam experienced. And, it's sort of that understanding that they were actually sent to Vietnam for a war that they didn't really understand. They were just doing what their country told them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they come back and get the sense that their country hates them for doing it. And it's,
But it's a really awkward film.
But
it's a really awkward film because there's that thing of like, you as a modern action fan, you relish in the action. So the bit where he's in the, he's in the woods and he does all those sort of guerrilla tactics and he, he does them as non-lethal, so he never kills anyone. In the film, he never kills anyone, on purpose. There's the guy that falls out the helicopter, but that's not really his fault. That's sort of like, an accident. So he never actually kills anyone that you see. But then I will say, him firing those bullets across town, pretty sure someone's going to get, someone's got wings. But that's it, yeah. But so going, oh yeah, come on, and then you realise that this guy's mentally broken. This guy is, a danger. Yeah. But to flip it though, the other thing that sort of like really struck me this time is when Troutman comes in. So his old commander.
Yeah.
Colonel Troutman comes in, and his opening line, I've got it in there somewhere, which I think is amazing. He comes in and says, what God made Rambo. He goes, God didn't make Rambo. I did.
Yes.
And it's that level of pride that I made this broken down soldier and sent him into war and cast him aside.
It is. Oh, what other lines does he have? It's like, you're not hunting him, he's hunting you.
Some of them are really cliche.
He's called it. It is that sense of pride. It's like, I built this killing machine.
Yeah.
Who's
if you're sending that many men,
you've got the National Guard after him, and I built him, and screw you.
Yeah, it is. It's a real pride thing.
But then you think about it. Actually, it's Rambo that's using the guerrilla tactics that the Vietnamese beat the Americans in the war. Using to beat.
Well, it makes me wonder. Like, there's almost in my mind, and I'm not asking for it. I don't want Hollywood to make it because it ruins the mission. But like, what the hell happened in Vietnam? Like, what is Rambo's story? Like, what was he trained to do? I do find that I think there's that whole backstory that you do find is really interesting. Because Troutman is weird. Because like I said, the other one, they say they're going to send in that many. They're sending 200 men, and he says, well, if you're going to send that many men, and then you better have one thing. It's like, what's that? He says, plenty of body bags. And it's like, my God, like this guy is just all ego. That's all he, he's just pride. Like, but did you know? There's a couple of things worth noting. Originally, they were going to cast Kirk Douglas.
See, I heard. Well, I read there was going to be Al Pacino. I think was up for it.
They were approached. Yeah. Kirk Douglas turned up on set.
Okay, I didn't know that. I know there was a number of people before they got to Stallone.
No, this was for Kirk Douglas was approached for Troutman.
Oh right, okay.
So he was going to play Troutman. Yeah, but Stallone didn't want to do it at first. Yeah, but they approached loads of people before Stallone took it. I think, like I said, Al Pacino, Clint Eastwood, all the usual sort of people. And Stallone took it after he'd read the book and said,
he changed a few things.
Yeah, he said, I want to do this, I want to try that. Because the other thing is, the original book, the original cut of the film, was like the work cut as it was 2.5 hours long. And when Stallone and his agent watched it, they hated it so much and thought it was a career killer that Stallone and the agency offered to buy the film off the studio so that it would never see the light of day. And the studio said, well, okay, tell you what, if you sit down and we'll negotiate a cut. And apparently, like, all they removed loads of Stallone scenes. Apparently, there was loads more of like Stallone talking to Dennehy. Dennehy, the guy who plays the sheriff. And there was like all this. They wanted to humanise him. They kept saying, you've got to do this to humanise Rambo, and you've got to do this. And Stallone was like, you don't. Apparently, a big part of it was him explaining like what had gone in the jungle and all that sort of stuff. Okay. And he wanted rid of that, so they got it down to that hour and a half. So there's an hour. I mean, usually from a work print to a finished film, you lose like half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But to lose an hour, so they obviously, and I think it worked. Like the less you know about Rambo, the better.
It does, because I know because it doesn't. I've read the book and it doesn't stick strictly to the book, does it? Because in the book, Rambo, it sort of it doesn't. Like in the film, Rambo is the anti-hero.
Yeah.
In a sense, but he is, he is the character that you sort of empathise with, and you want to come out okay at the end of it, and it's the policeman is the bad guy in it, and you want to see get what's coming to him. But the book actually is a balance between the two, and you kind of have a sense that the police officer, he's not a great guy, but he's got his reasons for it, and Rambo isn't all as innocent as he's made out to be. So I think there's, I think what they've done in the film in order to make it into a film is probably the right thing, because you do, there is that connection with Rambo when you sort of go, I hope he's okay at the end of it. I hope he gets away with it. Sort of,
he is the sympathetic character, and it's also because it's weird because the film, it's a film that's asking you to sympathise with a difficult character. Because in Rambo, like you say, there are points in the film where you sort of, you're sort of looking at it, again, you look at it and go, right, if they both just said stop now, it could be over. Stop now.
He runs into the woods. All he wants to do is go.
Be left alone.
Left alone. Leave me alone, and I'm gone. But I think the policeman's got a bit of a.
But it's the same for Rambo.
Inferiority complex. Then he's like, no, I'm going to get you.
It's the same for Rambo. Like there's a few points where he could, because when he does get away, he stays in a perimeter of the woods, like to fight back.
Yeah.
He could still just leave. He could, So there's lots of things like that where you do think, this has become a war. Because I'll go back to the Kirk Douglas thing because it always makes me laugh. But there's a thing about the sheriff made a mistake. But the other thing I think from the sheriff is, once it's on that path, he can't let go of it, because he can't be seen to be beaten in the face of the town that he serves and the people, he's sort of like his department.
Yeah.
So he's almost on like a path that he can't get off of. That moment where he's like, he's got into the woods, and you do think like, they just fucking leave him alone. But he can't. He's on that ending is inevitable from that moment.
Well, it's him that caused it, isn't it? At the end of the day, if he'd have just let him come into town, have something to eat, he'd have had something to eat, and he'd be gone on his way, and that would have been it. But he caused the problem, bringing him in. That's what kicks out. I think it's that sense of, actually, this is all my fault.
Yeah.
If I'd have just let him have a burger and go, none of this would have happened. I antagonised him.
Yeah.
And now all this has got, so I've got to be seen to sort it out.
But there's also that moment as well at the beginning when it sort of all happens and he drives him over the bridge and Rambo turns around and walks back, that you do sort of think to yourself, after what's happened, is he looking for a fight?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm not saying that he is, but to me there's always that moment where I'm like, he could have just walked off, he could have just carried on. So like you say, no one's innocent in that really. They're all they're each antagonising the other person. But talking about that actually, to antagonist. So Kirk Douglas was brought on, was hired and brought on set to play Colonel Troutman. Okay, he read the book and he read the script, and when he turned up on set, he was clearly off his face apparently on whatever, and he turned up with a list of recommends and alterations and stuff. And he said, "Oh, the ending's completely wrong. The ending's wrong." He said, "What should happen is," he said, "that Colonel Troutman should be sent into the woods and it should become man on man on in the woods, and Troutman kills Rambo." And then at the end, sort of, the sheriff thinks it's all over, and then you see Colonel Troutman's snapped as well, and then he kills the sheriff, and that's the end. And everyone was like, "Kirk, it's been lovely for you to come. We'll happily pay your expenses, but leave."
See you later.
Yeah.
Spartacus.
Yes, right. Yeah. I'm Rambo. So then they brought in Richard Crenna, and he was like a last minute replacement. So apparently he only took the job like as a favour, really, as a last minute deal, thinking, it's going to be a one off, it'll be a throwaway thing, I can go with it, and obviously he got a couple more films out of it. But we've talked about the ending as well. So you mentioned the ending. Now the ending is what are your thoughts on that ending? The very ending, that last moment, the face off between him and Troutman.
you know, obviously he's gone off and he's shot the town up and he's blown things up and he's got whatever the policeman's name is, Brian Dennehy's character.
That's it, Brian Dennehy.
Cornered.
Yeah.
And he's about to kill him, or you get the sense he's about to kill him before Troutman comes in and stops him. And then it's Troutman saying, the war's over, forget about it, it's done. And then boom, he snaps. And I think it's the time up until that point. Obviously, you see the emotion in his actions when he's in the police station at the start, and he
reacts.
He has that flashback and reacts. But up until that point, he's quite a cool character.
Yeah.
He hides out in the woods. He sets his booby traps.
He's been non-lethal up until that point.
Yeah, he claims his innocence in that scene in the ravine bit where they're shouting down at him and they're trying to shoot at him. He's claiming his innocence, saying it wasn't me, I didn't do anything. Over the radio, he says to him, "Look, I didn't start this, you did. Leave me alone.
Yeah, let me go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this as I'm going off on a tangent. I was thinking about this on the way over. That the line in Rambo 2 where he talks about being expendable was what gave him the inspiration.
It is. That's exactly. He said it in an interview.
Another great trilogy.
Yeah.
And I thought, I did wonder whether or not that conversation over the walkie-talkie was the inspiration for a popular Disney film. Where it says, let it go. Yeah.
I'd love to hear Stallone doing it.
Stallone is the inspiration behind Frozen. But then that's the first time when then you really sympathise, because he snaps and he just breaks down and he's in tears and he's talking about the response he got when he came back from the war and his mate being blown up in
That's
a bar.
the bit that really gets me, when he's like talks about him and his buddy, and he's like, his mate was blown up because the kid who was shoe shine. He's like, "Blood's all over me." And
I can't find your legs. And and it kind of does. Being English and not born in the 60s, you don't really get a sense of, other than through films, what the Vietnam War was like. And that kind of brings home to you the sort of the tactic, not only the tactics the Vietnamese were using kids carrying bombs around, but the impact that it had on the people that were over there.
Well, more than anything, you get that sense that like this whole film has clearly got a political message. Like, there's a thing there about how to treat your veterans and all that kind of stuff. And that story there, it shows that like this was a real stain on America. Like, it was a real thing on their conscience.
Yeah.
And I did some research on that, about this film, and Vietnam ended in the 70s, early to mid 70s, I think. But the fact is, it hadn't been addressed yet on film. So you get films like Platoon, Deer Hunter, and then you get and eventually we get to a point where you can even mock it, and you get things like Tropic Thunder and other things like that. But at this point, no one had really talked about it on screen, so it was quite a brave film in many ways to be. That scene at the end when they start talking about what happened, you think, well, fair play. 1982, you're talking about that. The problem I have with it, okay, and this is it's a bit of a damning on Stallone, is I think Stallone's actually not a bad actor. I think he can do. He hasn't got the range of, say, a De Niro or a DiCaprio or someone like that. But I wouldn't say he's no slouch. There are things he's done on Copland, for example, is a great film, and he's done other bits. But he can't seem to do upset. Do you know what I mean? Because I watched this.
In all fairness, you can only make out about half of that speech.
Yeah. I will be perfect. I did put subtitles on just to make sure I fully got the story.
Very much like Mickey dying in Rocky 3.
And that's exactly where my head went. So the moment he does that, right, and here come the sort of bad impressions. Is that moment where he talks about Danny's like, I can't find your legs. I can't find your legs. Is when I go to Rocky 3. He's like, and I'm just like, someone needs to take him aside and be just like, bring it down a level.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
He's a man's man, though, isn't he? He's not built for
no.
emotion and crying.
And and that's why
he'd rather shoot somebody.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. But that's why when you do think of some of the other people that were approached for this film, like you say, Al Pacino and Clint Eastwood and some of these others, you do wonder, I wonder what else. I wonder what way that film would have gone with those people in that role.
Does Clint Eastwood have emotions?
Mm.
I'm not sure.
No, I agree. I mean,
I'm not sure Clint Eastwood could even do angry. I think he's just Clint Eastwood, isn't he?
I love Clint Eastwood, right? I've got a big, like, you know, I love Clint Eastwood films and stuff. But you're right. I don't think people go, oh, he's a great actor. Like, well, he's a fantastic director, and he's chosen the right films. Because let's be perfectly honest, his range isn't massive.
He'd have made a great Terminator.
He would have done. Yeah.
Because it's just...
Can you squint? I can squint. Right, then we're all golden. We're all golden on that one. So yeah, now the thing to note is obviously it was based on a book by David Morrell, and David Morrell actually loved the film. He was really worried when he sort of gave up the rights to it because he'd seen what happened to other books, like Death Wish and others, where they'd been taken and turned into sort of things. But he was quite happy with the money. Right. But he was very happy with. He was very happy with how this film turned out, which is quite good, I suppose, as a writer, to have your story taken and pretty much written pretty accurately, really.
Yeah. I mean, not only do you get the money from the film, but then how many more copies of the book are you going to sell?
Yeah.
Post the film.
Well, like I say, because I have had a look on Amazon, and you can pick up a copy pretty cheaply now. But there's obviously the original print, and then there's like the movie tie-in and all this other stuff. So, and Dave Morrell comes up quite a lot in this as we go on. The thing I would say just before we wrap up on the first film is this film has got heart in the sense of it's willing to ask questions. I mean, the things I've put there is like it asks questions like who is responsible for the vets? You know, it's got God didn't create Rambo, I did. And you see it in Troutman's face at the end. There's actually this thing because I think Troutman's a good actor as well. I quite like the guy Richard Crenna because you do see at the end that there's that moment when Rambo breaks down.
Yeah.
And he's looking at him, and there's like his lip almost like not quivers, but like there's an expression on Crenna's face when he's like, "Oh, I did this." And
I think that's where I was heading before we sort of went off on a tangent. And it is that kind of, like you were saying, it was that pride of I created this.
Yeah.
You know, this killing machine, this one-man army, this is all my doing, you know. You guys have got no chance. And then at the end it's like,
this is what it's become.
Look what we did to these boys.
It is, and I think that's the punchline of the film, is that one glimmer in Troutman's face, where it is like all that pride and all that, you know, gung-ho jingoism is all of a sudden broken down to like, oh, we didn't make him. Like, we broke this guy. Like,
and you almost, you know, I think it's explored more throughout the other films, like 2 and 3, but you almost get the sense that Rambo sees Troutman almost as a father figure.
Yeah.
And so if that is the case, you know, in this first film, it's like, well, I looked up to you and you were meant to be looking out for me, and look what you put me through.
And that's it. And we'll come on to him as
we'll
come on to him as a father figure, right? Because it's quite clear at the end of the film that in the first film that Troutman, like I say, has seen him now as a broken man, and he wants to do his best for him. And he actually says that, like, well, we'll do our best for you. We'll you know, I'm not going to kill you, but we're gonna, you know, you can't be in thingy.
Yeah.
So that'll take us on to the second film.
That's what I say, because now it's just like, just going to send you back to Vietnam.
Okay, so then. Number 2, First Blood, Part 2, which, let's be honest, is a bit of a misnomer because it's not a Part 2. It is just a sequel, isn't it? Like, it didn't finish off the story or anything.
No.
So we find Rambo was arrested. He was taken away to a Looney Tunes labour camp where he just gets to break rocks and make himself as ripped as possible.
Straight off the back of Rocky 4.
He is.
Just before Rocky 4.
I think Rocky was filmed first, and then they filmed this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's ripped in this film. He's like crazy ripped. So we just said about Troutman being like a father figure and acknowledging his fragile mental state, shall we say, with PTSD. So what way do you help a former soldier and person who's broken with that mental illness?
You send him back to the place where it all went wrong for him.
You send him back to the POW camp where he was tortured. Clearly that's the right way to go.
Clearly with the intention, as Rambo himself says, because I'm expendable.
Yeah.
You're sending me because I don't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I get killed out here.
Which is another... Which again is like, we'll get into the first film, but again, that moment when he's like, I'm expendable, that I'm like, I feel really uncomfortable.
Was he a brummie?
Yeah. Just is. He's going to travel a lot, I think. But he's just, like you say, again, that's a really uncomfortable moment when you sort of realise that he knows that if he gets killed in this, like, Troutman probably won't shed much of a tear over it. He'll be like, oh well, next
Let's
one.
face it, they give him the code name Lone Wolf.
Yeah.
It's like, you're on your own out there, so off you go. We haven't got your backs.
You're screwed one, this is your screw two. So yeah, again though, this film's got some odd heritage, or some odd provenance. So Stallone obviously, although he didn't want to do it in the first place, sort of got quite attached to the character after that and wanted to inject some of his own politics into it, really. So James Cameron was brought on, the James Cameron of Terminator and Aliens and all that kind of thing, to write the script. And he wrote a script, and apparently when it came through, Stallone said, I like that, but I don't like that. It included things like Stallone was going to have a sidekick, like a techie sidekick, and there was going to be some other bits and pieces that Stallone was like, no. Like, it felt a little bit like comedy, action comedy, leaning that way a little bit. So he took all that out and then put his own politics in. So this whole thing about POWs still being in Vietnam and stuff, that's all Stallone. So all that stuff about, and then obviously about him being betrayed and all that stuff, is all Stallone, that's him putting it in the script.
Okay.
But I always thought like it was a made up thing.
I wasn't until today, was slightly unsure why there were Russians in Vietnam. Post Vietnam.
Yeah.
Found out, the Russians did have secret soldiers in Vietnam at the time of the war.
Backhanders of cash and weapons and stuff. But
why they were still in there, I don't know. I think it's still just Stallone pumping his Cold War agenda.
Yeah. It is totally.
It's like, we're against communists, but the Russians are communism, so let's just throw them in as well. But yeah, I suppose it's the. I think you can probably talk slightly less about politics when it comes to number 2, and the action does creep into it a little bit more. But I suppose it is.
It doesn't creep in. It runs in, blows the doors off.
But it is that continuation, I think, of people that were let down by their country.
Yeah. I mean, there's a line in the very opening of the film. So, like I say, Troutman comes to the gates of the What's It camp, and they have this sort of like back and forth about, you get to go in and do reconnaissance or whatever. And Stallone says, do we get to win this time? Yeah. And he says, well, this time it's up to you. And it does sort of feel a bit like even Troutman's admitting that, like, it was all the bureaucrats and the politicians that lost us Vietnam. There's none of that now. It's all up to you. Soldiers, rah, rah, rah. It feels a little bit like that. And which is not surprising in the Reagan era America, which was very sort of like, USA, USA. I mean, still are, but it feels a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, Reagan was big into his Rambo, wasn't he?
Well, it was off the back of this film that Reagan actually declared that Rambo is a Republican. Right? Which really, when you watch the films, I don't think he's a Republican or a Democrat. No. You know what I mean? He's lone wolf.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, he's not, he's a one-man army. It depends on your interpretation, doesn't it? But you can say that he is America embodied and that he is the man that will go and sort things out. Or you could say, actually, do you know what? This is a man who's been entirely let down by his country. Yeah. And, they've only served to in the first film, turn him into a bit of an emotional wreck, and B, in the second film, he's just a killing machine, an emotionless killing machine. Yeah, that doesn't matter whether he makes it or not.
If anything, they don't want him to make it. Like it's that thing of like, actually, we'd prefer it if he didn't. Yeah, because we can write him off then. It's a done and deal sort of thing.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a conspiracy just to get Rambo killed.
Maybe. I mean, he must know some stuff from back in the day.
He's got something on.
Yeah.
Murdoch. Murdoch wants him dead.
But that's the thing. Because they do leave him, because he does find the POWs, doesn't he? And he brings one out as sort of like evidence. Yeah. And then the helicopter comes into land, and Troutman's there, and he's like, "Come on, get aboard!" And they like bring it back in. Yeah. because they didn't really want to find anything, because if they find something, it means they've got to go back and find the rest, and it's obviously a political nightmare.
Yes, that's it. Because
So-
the point of it, isn't it? It's to prove to the country
There aren't
any POWs left in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And Rambo finds them, and they're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Because there is that moment, isn't it? There is actually in the control
That one
room.
was meant to be empty.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. Because there's that moment in the control room when it comes through and he's like, he's got one. And he's like, everybody out. Oh, shit.
What do we do now?
Yeah, there is that moment. He's like, oh my God. Well, all right, we have to leave them there.
Yeah.
So obviously from that point on, it goes... Because that's the point. I think there's that betrayal. Up until that point... It's like there's almost like there is action and there's some other bits and pieces, but the moment there's the betrayal and that helicopter flies away, it's almost like the thing that's flying also away is the political message. It's like, right, we'll leave the politics there, bye, and that's when action comes and blows the door off.
Shit crazy.
Yeah, because that's the turning point.
He gets captured, doesn't he?
He does.
He gets tortured. And then they kill his girlfriend. Just, what more can go wrong for this man?
That woman, right? That sort of like the moment they got on that boat together, and she's sort of like talking to him. He's about, he's talking about being expendable, and he's. I'm like, I remember the first time I watched this film, I was like, well, she's dead.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way she's making it out of this film.
Well, that conversation now, that's just brought back that classic moment, hasn't it? When he's asking about a necklace, he's like, it brings me luck. Like, what brings you luck? I'm big fucking like this.
Yeah. It's almost like I make my own luck.
Yeah. Crocodile Dundee can swivel on that one. This is a knife.
Actually, I'd love to see that. That's not a knife. This is a knife. And then Rambo's like, she was never going to make it. But it also has... This film, I think the pacing in this film is a bit odd at times. I think it drags for a while. It has some silly bits. But the moment he's betrayed and it becomes like balls to the wall action is when I really like it.
Yeah.
Because like you say, he's captured. He's been sort of like held in that like cesspit thing, and then he's brought out and he's tortured. And weirdly, this shows how old I am, right? And how my sensibilities have changed. I'm like, he's been in that cesspit, and then they cut him, and I'm like, that's going to get infected.
He's got leeches on him.
That's it. Maybe that's what it is, cleaning him up. But then he's forced to go on the microphone and sort of say something in particular, isn't he? To declare, that his country has done this and da 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 da.
Yeah.
So they get recorded. He's meant to go back and speak to the CIA. And he agrees to it, and you sort of think, oh my God, they've broken Rambo. Like, he's been electrocuted on that bed and he's been cut and all this other stuff. You think, oh my God, they've broken him. And he gets the microphone. And he sort of holds it, and you think, they're telling him to say something, and he's like, Murdoch.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah. and then you're like, go Rambo. And that's it. And then he manages to break his way out and he starts to get everything. And he's obviously, he doesn't have machine guns, or he's lost all that. He's got his knife because he never loses his knife.
Yeah.
And then he gets the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
For the first time, including atomic weapon level arrowheads.
Explosive warhead.
Yeah.
I can't imagine any US Army soldier in the 60s and 70s being taught to use a bow and arrow in combat.
Yeah.
So where he gets those skills from, because he's pretty accurate with it.
He's not pretty accurate. Like, this guy would make Robin Hood weep. Yeah.
If it was Troutman that turned him into the soldier that he did,
this is what I'm
his
saying.
bow and arrows.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I want to know more about. There is a story. Like, I want to see what his training regime was in Vietnam. Like, this kid turned up in this sort of like mid 60s, early 70s, joined the army, taken to special forces, and then what? They train him on stuff that's like here's other things you're going to need for action films in the future.
Yeah. Hand-to-hand combat, I get.
Yeah. Weapons.
Bow and arrow. Not convinced.
So the bow and arrow then. So yeah, he's incredibly accurate, and he's also carrying around explosives on the end of it.
Yeah.
It is cool. I can't deny that. It is one of the best parts of that film. Is when he stood on the rock formation thing on that waterfall, and he's got some sort of. I'm assuming he's got some sort of force field because every bullet is missing him, and he sort of like pulls out the arrow and sort of like all in slow mo, looking incredibly badass, and then blows the guy up.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, because those arrowheads that you've seen are enough to blow, holes as big as a car.
Oh yeah, they go.
But
crazy.
then when it hits the bloke, it's just enough just to blow him slightly limb from limb.
Yeah.
There's no.
Yeah, I mean that's an impressive effect, but I do like the fact that maybe they come like colour coded.
Potentially.
Like he comes out, and they've got
Different
green
levels
ones.
of
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a big red one that's just sort of do not use. But like fireworks, they come with a warning on them.
Yeah.
Do not look at. Run once you've lit. So he obviously takes out most of the Vietnamese army.
69, I think.
Oh, yeah, because the kill count goes up on these films.
I think it's 69 in number 2.
All right. So here's what happened. Yeah, because this is what happens because I checked the kill count on some of these films. Right. So the first one has got 1. Yeah. One person dies in the first film.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily Rambo's fault.
No.
Second one is directly responsible for. I'm sure it's around 69. Yeah. That sort of number.
Yeah. So the kill count's jumped, and it will jump again. So he's taken on the Vietnamese army, and he's going to. He's obviously been captured, right? So this is in the mid-80s, okay, and the Russians have been involved. Okay, so there's obviously things. So and they've got him recorded, speaking and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the film, so he comes back, and he brings back all the other POWs with him. Right. So he gets them all out, and they get back, and obviously he does that. It's a great bit. He walks up to Troutman, carrying that big ass gun. And again, I think Richard Crenna's actually really good in this role because you sort of think he's walking up to him, thinking like, you just try and stop me, and you can see on Crenna's face, he's like, no, I'm agreeing with you, mate. You go do your thing. And he blows up all that computer room.
I have to say, at that point, Stallone is possibly the only person who can hold and fire a gun that size one-handed.
And that's what I was going to say. Because it's that bit where I'm like, all he's shooting is computers, but it looks awesome. I can't deny that there's a 10-year-old in me that's going, yeah! Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
It's like an M60. This gun was taken from the helicopter.
He takes it off the helicopter gun. Yeah.
He's firing it one-handed.
Because he's got like the bullets like roped over one arm, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And because on the art I've done for this, right, on the pitch that will go up to on social medias, on the front of the podcast when it goes up, I chose a picture of every time Stallone or Rambo's carrying a gun, like a big gun, and the gun clearly gets bigger as well, like for each film, and it is quite impressive. Like I wouldn't mess with the guy. Like I say, he is ripped and stuff. Yeah. The one thing that I find interesting in this is, and this is you and your Stallone facts will know this. Obviously, by the time he's made this film, and I assume it's it wouldn't be the second one, but by this time film, he has had surgery on his left
pec
arm.
He was training for Rocky 4.
Yeah.
Can't remember who it was that was training him, but he was bench pressing, and essentially his left pec exploded because he was benching that hard and that heavy. Yeah. So he's actually got like a cable in his arm and his shoulders, doesn't he? And it's clearly defined in certain shots. That it looks uncomfortable, but the fact that he's obviously that's happened, and then he's carried on and obviously done like Rocky 4 and done Part 2, First Blood Part 2, shows the guy's got some steel. That he's not messing around. Like the guy is going to be tough. Well, in fairness, to bench that much that your muscle
explodes.
Yeah. That's some.
Again, a bit like his dramatic acting, it's that thing of take it down a level. It's about repetitions, not weight.
Yeah. High reps, low weight.
That's it, yeah. Here's 1 kilogram, I want 1,000. Not 1,000 kilograms and 1, alright? Yeah, so he does. He looks mad, mad, and then he obviously, but he doesn't kill Murdoch, does he? He just says to him like, there's clearly more. Yeah. Go get them, or I'm going to.
In fact, I was reading about his training regime for Rambo 2, and he would get up and train for 2 or 3 hours, spend a day shooting, which can be anything 10 to 12 hours. Yeah. And then he'd train for another 2 or 3 hours and get sort of 5-6 hours of sleep a night, and then be back up and do it the same again. And that was his regime throughout the film.
It's one of those odd things, right? I think about when you see these people, and like I can't deny, that dedication. Yeah. Is like really seriously deserves commending. That you want to turn up and do that. Like, that's why they get paid that much money.
Well, this is it. I mean, and again, going off on a tangent. I mean, I think Rocky 3. When you see how trim he is in the end fight in Rocky 3, I think he goes down to something like...
And Rocky 4, like he's...
I think he's down at something like 4 or 5% body fat. But he was going through his training regime, which was like 2 sets of training a day, something like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And I'm sure I read at one point that at points in Rocky 3, particularly when he dropped to that body, he was eating a slice of toast a day.
It's mad.
And then training like
it's ludicrous. It is crazy. But like I say, it shows how much, like, yes, he hasn't got maybe the acting chops of a De Niro, but the guy commits.
Oh,
like, I will never, it's the same for Schwarzenegger as well. Like, these guys commit to these things.
Absolutely. I mean, look at him in Expendables when he's in his 60s and what he's going, what he's putting himself through in those films. It's,
No, the dude's got a set. But for all that training, like I say, it's no wonder. Like, if I was ripped like that, because he wears his combats are clearly quite tight, and he wears that vest top. So that's pretty much what I would wear. Like, just going to the shops, they'd be like, it's 4 degrees outside. I don't care. I've worked for this body.
Look how good I look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pass me the olive oil. Wash it on. Right, I'm off to the shops.
Oh, this can of beans is particularly heavy. Yes.
Just that's it. Yeah. I've got 2 bags of rice. Lift above his head. And so I do think that all that, well done to him. Fair play. It's good on that front. That he is an action hero. But the thing that makes me laugh about that is the fact he had to train in the morning and the evening before shooting, right? And I know we talk about these. There's talk of, and rightfully so, and what do they call it? An unrealistic female body type.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's always that thing, and it's more so for females than it's for males. I totally agree. That there's the media pressure on women to look a certain way, right? And it's probably less so for men now. But in the 80s, right? If that was the people you were looking at on screen, of like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, you'd eventually have Van Damme and Snipes and all these other guys that were just cut, like they really were. Then that's an unrealistic body type for blokes as well. Like you were not going to be. No one's ever going to be that ripped, but still.
No, I think that's where Bruce Willis comes in, isn't it? Bruce Willis sort of takes one for the team there, and the guy's in good shape, but he's no.
Yeah, the everyman. So that's him ripped. So that's we've admired Stallone for his gumption on that. But that's two. But that's what two basically boils down to. I'd say it's an action milestone.
Yes,
because it's like the first one was from an action standpoint. You've got.
The first one isn't an out action film, is it?
This is the first.
This is
true.
This is a proper action.
one man army.
Yeah,
but I also think, like, you're right, that first film. Without that first film, obviously you wouldn't have Rambo 2, but you wouldn't have Commando. You probably wouldn't have the cast of Predator. Those sorts of things. But this one solidifies it. This one is the one where you're like, right. This is the one where you've got to be able to bench press a tank and
without Rambo 2, you wouldn't have Hot Shots Part 2.
Which is, I was going to say, get onto there on. Which I do, yeah. And this is the thing about the bow and arrow, isn't it? Because they
the chicken.
Yeah, that's it.
Just that. Do you know what? I hadn't even thought about that film until just now.
Yeah. So Rambo can fire a nuclear weapon, but Topper Harley can fire a chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is, it is that film that carries that sort of then cult following. You've got Hot Shots Part 2, which is obviously the Mickey tape, but it spins off into Gremlins.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
Gizmo emulating Rambo.
Yeah, a couple of years later, exactly. So in like '89, you get Gremlins 2, and you get Gizmo doing the band and the bow and arrow. He actually does a flaming bow and arrow.
His little paperclip and elastic band.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, I think this is the film that solidified the character of Rambo as an American icon.
Yeah.
He became an action icon off the back of this film. I think because this film also launched. And before we go on to the third one, we're going to have a little detour. Okay? We have a little detour because we're talking about like hard R, 18 level. Well, the first one was 15, the third one's an 18, fourth one's definitely an 18. Level sort of violence action films, right? So as a producer or a studio bod, when you're approached with things, how can you make more money off this? Well, of course you're going to think children's cartoon.
Of course.
So in 1986, they were I forget what studio it was. A studio was commissioned to create 65 episodes of Rambo and the Force for Freedom.
Wow. I suppose. Oh, I don't even know where to start with that. It's propaganda.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, no, this is the thing, right?
It is. It's targeting an audience that shouldn't at least have been watching Rambo. They may have seen. I was watching that film when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
but I'd say you were the exception, especially in America. They were very strict on this sort of things over there. But
in fact, in all fairness, I think I might have even had. In fact, no, I know I had.
You definitely had.
I had Rambo toys.
You did have Rambo toys.
Based on.
I remember your Rambo
cartoon
toys.
series.
I remember your Rambo toys for two reasons, right? Because I remember the action figure,
Yeah.
but I also remember when you got bored of it and pulled its head off.
Oh yeah,
and
I
you
put it on that alien model I made.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Of course, yeah.
And you had blood and stuff all over it.
Alien versus Rambo.
Yeah. Rambo lost.
Rambo did lose that one.
But this cartoon, right? I watched a bit of it today on YouTube. It's readily available on YouTube, right? I recommend it for a bit of like 80s cheese because it's terrible. It's not even voiced by the person who voices Rambo. Not only is it not Stallone, but they're clearly not even trying to be Stallone. Like, it's a real like generic American hero accent. But the film, the cartoon is it's an offshoot of like G.I. Joe or Mask or anything like that. Like, that's what it is. It gets dampened down so much. Like, when I watched some of it, I was like, this is crazy. But bow and arrow survives, red bandana survives, that sort of thing. So it is very jingoistic. It's very silly. Colonel Troutman's in it. But the thing is, it's like every time the army can't seem to deal with something, we just call Rambo. But when they were writing it, so when they wrote the first initial, I think it's 7 episodes, was like a bit of a, here's what you're going to get sort of thing. The critics, or not the critics, but like the what we would have as the BBFC, the censors.
Yeah.
That's it. The censors. They made it very clear. Right? They said, what was it? I've got it here somewhere. My notes. Okay, so they said that the studios advised that the cartoon should not make any reference to Vietnam, prisoners of war, or Rambo's experiences in First Blood or First Blood Part 2. So basically, what they're saying is, yeah, you can use Rambo, do what you want,
but
just
he's not Rambo.
But just don't mention anything that he's done before.
So really, what they've done is they've just given this generic action hero a recognised name.
Yeah, it's an IP. It's intellectual property, and they've gone up. Now let's not kid ourselves. This isn't the only time this happened. This was the first. I had to check. This was the first. But this obviously did give way to RoboCop.
So this is the first time a film has spawned a spin-off cartoon.
Not a film spawned, but an R-rated film has had a. There was following on the heels of this, because of, I won't say the success, but because this was done, you get RoboCop.
Yeah.
There was an attempt to make an Aliens spin-off cartoon called Space Marines, and it was going to focus on the Space Marines, and it was going to have xenomorphs and that sort of thing, but that got killed off. But because the cartoon got killed off, they'd already designed and built some of the toy range, so they just sold the toys without making the cartoon. So I'm surprised there's not like a Terminator cartoon or you know, Predator, something like that. But yeah, so Rambo went off and did cartoons, and it was cancelled pretty quickly.
It's something, not necessarily from an R-rated point of view, but it's something that's kind of continued, isn't it? Star Wars fill in a lot of their gaps through the cartoon series.
Yeah. Oh god, it's more of an accepted thing now. I'm not saying R-rated cartoons or R-rated films, but yeah, with things like Marvel and Star Wars, filling in the gaps or extending the media is much more accepted now. And I think this would probably be, one of those things of it's a sidestep, because what it was really,
it's just an attempt to see Rambo's cheerier side. He's such a depressing character.
He is.
Put him in Technicolor on an
That's
episode.
it. Put him in a cartoon. And
in animation.
That's it. There's going to be an episode where he fights a robot, and there'll be an episode where he fights a bear or something like that. It'll be fun.
And the classic at the end of the programme.
Yes. Yeah. It's sort of like, I was almost hoping they would have the He-Man level of morals. Killing Vietnamese is not always right. All right. Thanks,
Stay safe, kids.
Yeah. When firing your M80, make sure your guns are well oiled. And then he flexes his arms. But of course, the other thing was it sets a precedence. I think, like we said, Rambo 2 sets a precedence for one-man army action films.
Yeah.
I think the cartoon sets a precedence for that, for those other cartoons.
Yeah.
But it was made because of. It was an extension in more ways of making money, but it was made because of He-Man, because of Transformers, because of all those things that were basically animated adverts for toys. Because you knew you were going to get a Rambo figure, and you were going to get Rambo's tank, and you were going to get Rambo's plane, and you were going to get Rambo's... I'm sure all of that existed.
Do you know what? You've just reminded me. As a child, I had a Rambo machine gun, and it was Rambo.
Did it have a line of bullets you could link over your arm?
It did.
Seriously?
It did. It came in 2 parts.
Yeah.
So you could turn it into a big M60 looking thing.
So
or you could take the front off. It fired red plastic sticky darts. It came with a plastic bowie knife, but it was all Rambo branded. Rambo 2. That I'm gonna obviously listeners won't be able to watch this.
Yeah, it's a great
but
video.
I'm gonna.
Well, whilst you look for that,
find it, and I'm going to show you what I had as a child.
So this thing, so let's we'll come back to the inappropriateness of Rambo merchandise in the mid '80s. Because the thing is, if it was me as a marketeer, some of this sounds like it's beyond my moral capability, but.
There was a Rambo water pistol while I'm just googling this. There's a Rambo machine.
But I'm pretty sure you should be able to buy a Rambo headband or something like that.
This was it. This is what I had.
Okay, we'll have a quick look. In fact, you know what? I will. If you can get a picture of it and send
available on eBay, good people.
There you go, on eBay. Get your Rambo merchandise now. I really want to see this. I'm so curious.
I had that as a child.
Right, I'm now looking at.
I remember
holidaying
in the Lake District playing with that.
Okay, so on eBay, I'm now looking at what is pretty much, I would say, in my limited knowledge, an accurate M60 machine gun.
It even had the prop.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can see it. I can see it in the book. It's an accurate depiction of an M60 machine gun, Rambo branded. Okay, I'm going to find that, and I'm going to be tweeting that. That's amazing. Okay, that'll be. I'll put that on Twitter. Check that out.
That's a blast from the past.
Okay, guess what Gaz is getting for Christmas this year. So after that, it was cancelled. It was basically commissioned and cancelled in '86, and then Rambo went quiet for a couple of years. And in 1988, oh my God, there's a better photo.
Yeah, it's all its glory.
Oh, okay. I'm going to find that and I'm going to tweet that.
I'm going to find it and buy it.
So Rambo goes away. Then 1988, we get Rambo 3.
Yes.
And we get another example of Colonel Troutman being possibly the worst leader and father figure in all of movie history.
Yeah, I mean, if he's taught Rambo all of these skills and he is the man that created Rambo, how does he get caught so easily? Did he not learn anything himself?
Well, Rambo 3, it starts... Yeah, he's not great, is he? Actually, he keeps getting caught. But Rambo 3 starts with... basically, Rambo 2 ends with him just wandering off. he walks off. They're in Vietnam. That's obviously where the base is, or somewhere else.
Well, they walk off together, don't they? And
No. The two ends up with just Rambo walking off his own. He has a word with Troutman, and he basically says, "I just want my country to love us vets as much as us vets love our country and all that sort of stuff." And he says to him, he says, "What are you going to do now?" He's like, "I don't know." He says, "How are you going to live?" And he says, "One day at a time." And just walks off, and you get Frank Stallone, his brother, singing, "It's a long road." And then obviously he goes off, and you find out that 3 years later he's been living in a Buddhist commune for however long.
Yes, Thailand.
In Thailand. But in order to make an extra...
Maybe the bird from number 2 gave him a bit of a thing.
Yeah. Call this number.
Yeah. Oh, he's living in a monastery though, isn't he? So maybe not.
Oh, I don't know. But he... basically to get money... Well, maybe that's why he fights.
Well, apparently that's what he fights... And he gives the money to the monastery, doesn't he? He gives
Yeah,
the money to the monks
he gives them
to have
money.
the upkeep of
So
the monastery.
maybe it's because he's celibate. That's his way. That's how he vents.
That's his release.
Yeah, there's a scene you don't know where he gets back and bashes one out. But that's how you see him. So I
hope he doesn't use his bandana to clean it.
and then puts it back on. Squelch.
That's how it stays on during all the action scenes.
Is that hair gel? Yes. So it opens again, like Troutman turns up, they've tracked him down. Again, like, he's clearly not hiding, but they seem to track him down quite easily.
Yeah.
And he has the stick fight.
Yes.
Again, which gets mimicked in Hot Shots Part 2.
Yeah.
In this, they do like they've got the sticks and he's got his bands and all that shit on. And then obviously in Hot Shots, they do it and he gives the caramel and he's like Smarties.
The gummy bears.
Yeah. Brilliant. But yeah, so he's doing that, and he's just trying to live this like life of peace. And again, when he was in prison at the start of 2, he's like, at least in here I know where I stand. I just have to get up. I do this. I go back to bed. I know what I'm doing. And then he's in this Buddhist monastery, and he's like, I live here in peace. I've found somewhere I can live and be quite calm and quiet. And Troutman's like, I want you to go in and kill some Russians. I think he's like,
just leave me alone.
Yes. Do you not get that I'm dealing with my own psychological issues? Could you come and kill some people? Listen, all right, leave me alone. So in this case though, he turns him down. And he says, No, I'm done. Yeah. I'm all good. I'm good here, And then Troutman goes and fucks it up.
Yeah.
And then the CIA come back and actually basically say, because you didn't go,
it's all your fault.
It's gone wrong.
This man has got so much mental torture going on.
Guilt.
Kidnapped and tortured, clearly tortured during Vietnam. First time.
Yeah. Numerous.
When he has his flashbacks.
I was going to say numerous times he's been tortured.
Bullied by the police.
Yeah.
Kidnapped and tortured again in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Girlfriend shot in front of him.
And then he goes off and finds the
only man he trusts keeps sending him back. He's like, go on, off you go.
If anything,
you haven't killed enough people yet. Go back.
Well, he actually says that, doesn't he? Though, in part, when he talks to him, is that when you're going to come full circle and realise what you are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are sick. Leave this poor guy alone.
Because he gives him the speech, doesn't he? It's about you were a lump of rock and I've carved you into.
I carved you into
the machine that you are.
And you can see, I'm just like, you're a sick man. You're a twisted, horrible.
That's it. No, he doesn't say I did it, does he? He talks about the artist. The artist has a lump of rock. The statue is always there underneath it. You've just got to chip away at the pieces.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with you. You are a killer.
Yeah. We gave you the eye of the tiger. But
you were born a killer. Oh, really?
Yeah, but that makes me again I want to go back to his childhood now. What trauma does this man carry? That you were fucked up when you came to us, but we just directed that to killing gooks. That's pretty much what he's saying, isn't it?
Can you say that?
No, I'll edit that bit out. But that's how it sort of comes across in the 80s, isn't it? That's how jingoistic and racist, that American story is you were broken, and then we just directed that mental trauma at other people. And so again, they basically lay a guilt trip on him, and he goes out to Afghanistan to take on the Russians.
An entire invading Russian army.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one-man army
this is where the body count doubles.
It does.
Again,
so this is
20 odd in this one.
No. It gets, no. This is incredible. This is so it was 100. You said 69 in 2, Yeah, it's 170 something.
Oh, 170 something.
So this was, at one point, this won the world record at the time for being the most violent and deadly film at that point.
See, again, Hot Shots Part 2.
When
you have the counter at the bottom.
All of it, when you learn these things...
Kill more people than Rambo. Kill more people.
Yeah, and it sounds like Kill More People, Robocop 2, and it's like, bloodiest film ever. Until Rambo came out.
Until Rambo, yeah.
But yeah, he goes to Afghanistan, and again, this carries its political message. This is all about the Cold War, evil Russians, and all that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
However,
the timing was all wrong.
The timing was wrong because obviously the Berlin Wall fell a couple of years later. But more than that, obviously, those rebels, or the great people of Afghanistan, to which the film is still dedicated...
Not if you get the new version.
No, it is. It's still on there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's still on there.
I thought they'd taken it off.
No. They changed it because at one point it did say to the valiant rebels of Afghanistan.
Right.
And then I think post 9/11, or even before that, they changed it to the gallant people of Afghanistan.
Okay. But no, the timing in respect as well... This film wasn't as successful as they thought it would be because before it was released, Gorbachev started dissolving the Soviet Union and pulled the Russians out of Afghanistan.
Yes.
At the time it was released, so it's like, well, you're a bit late to this party, Rambo.
That's it. So by the time
Gorbachev sorted it.
So by the time the film was released, that crisis was already over.
Yeah.
So basically, they won the film. They won the Cold War retrospectively. But of course, the rebels he fights with are the Mujahideen. And the bloody hell. Mujahideen. They obviously became, or a part of them became, the Taliban.
Yeah.
So, times change, friends change, enemies change,
Had Rambo have not gone, do you reckon they would have been as military...
He trained them.
Adept.
Yeah. I think what you don't realise, the reason he looks so depressed in 4 is that you don't realise that it's all his fault.
Any conspiracy theorists listen to your podcast? Can we start something going? 9/11 is Rambo's fault.
John Rambo started all this. Fool, one man army. Now, there's some interesting things about this, though. So, this was originally going to be directed by a guy called Russell Mulcahy, but he directed Highlander.
Okay.
And I think he'd done some music videos and that before that. And it was Stallone chose him because of how he saw Highlander and thought, it's a great film. You can handle this. So this guy was sent out before Stallone got out there, and they were going to do casting because they obviously needed some extras and all this other stuff. And then they had to get both the Russian army and the Afghanistan rebels and stuff like that. So Stallone turns up and he's like, so what you got? Who have you cast? And all this other stuff. And he said apparently the people that he cast were like completely wrong. He's like, all the Russians were these basically looked like Ivan Drago, but like they were pristine and clean and all this other stuff. And he was like, these are Russian soldiers that have been in the desert for like 4 years. These are hardened warriors. They shouldn't be. And apparently this guy was like, no, I want the film to do this. I want the film to do that. And I think we're gonna have a bit more humour. And apparently it lasted 2 weeks, and Stallone was like, you're out of here. Like, go. And they brought in a guy called Peter MacDonald, who was the second unit director on Rambo 2. And it's one of those situations where Peter MacDonald might have his name under the directing credit.
But Stallone's done it all.
But Stallone was probably there on his shoulder as a bit of a Jiminy Cricket kind of conscience kind of thing. So, I think, that sounds like... At this point, Stallone was all over this character. Like, as far as he saw it, was like, this was his... His one of his key films. Because really, when you think about it, Rambo and Rocky are his two biggest things.
Well, I mean, he's got, 6 films out of Rocky and 4 films out of Rambo.
Yeah.
And
another one coming out, another Creed 2 coming out.
Creed 2 coming... so 7.
Yeah.
7 films out of Rocky then, and an 8th to come with his Rocky character. 4 films out of Rambo. Beyond that, you've only got Barney Ross.
Yeah, really, that's had the most consistency.
Trilogy.
Yeah. So, it is worth sort of, thinking about that.
I think they're the only characters as well, though, that he's played. Well, Rocky and Rambo are the only characters he's played where it has carried that emphasis on the political message as well.
Yeah.
Or it's the, it's the more the story that people can relate to. Cobra's just a badass.
Yeah. Well,
Cop.
these
Copland
ones...
is just a fat old policeman.
Yeah.
Oscar, we won't talk about.
Don't. Rhinestone Cowboy.
Stop on my mum. We won't talk about.
Yeah.
His war.
Cliffhanger's good. Daylight's good.
Cliffhanger's good, but there's no. No.
But the thing with these is, I would say that more than anything, right? These are actual sagas. I'd say that Rambo and Rocky are sagas. They have consequences. Something that happened in one of the films has a consequence in the other films.
Yeah. But I suppose it's right. They're complete circles as well, aren't they?
Yes.
Rambo now has come. Before we move on to Rambo 4, but it has come
full circle. It's a
circle.
closed circle.
Rocky goes full circle.
Yeah.
He starts and he's made it, and he's come back to his roots, and now he's the trainer and whatever. So
it goes.
They're the only films where you get to see almost a lifespan of a character.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get on to what I think of the ending of Rambo as that cycle.
Yeah.
We'll get to But the other thing I should note, we didn't sort of mention about 2, but we'll mention about this one as well, because I quite like 3. I've got a real soft spot for 3.
I know 3's got your favourite Rambo line in it, and I know
it
what
has.
that line is.
It's actually I'll do that now, because it is. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's like it is. This is like the epitome of one man army, like more than any other film, right? It's Rambo, because again, so Colonel Trautman's been captured and he saves him, and he's basically taken on this Russian fortress, right? And they get out and they're heading into the desert, and Rambo's got his whatever he's got, his big old machine gun.
Yeah.
Trautman's got a smaller machine gun. And then the Russian army literally the Russian army turns up, tanks, helicopters, all this other stuff, and they're like, we give you this one last chance to surrender, and all that other shit. And then Trautman's like, what do we do, Johnny? What do we do? And he's just fuck them. It's like what? No. And what happens? He still wins.
He still wins.
They just open fire.
That wasn't actually the line I was thinking of.
Oh, I know the other one you're thinking of. So when he turns up,
this?
It's a light stick. Blue. So,
blue light.
He turns up and he goes to his thing. He goes, the Afghan guy's like, what's this?
He's got his equipment, hasn't he? He's been supplied with all the resources he wants and the supply and equipment. What's this?
It's a blue light.
What does it do?
It turns blue. It's the way he said it. Because he looks really confused. He's like, turns blue. It's just, it is. I don't know why. I think it's that. It's a great action film, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a really good action film because there are scenes in this, there are fights in this that are brilliant. Like they're just so ridiculous and badass. Like the bit when because he always does his guerrilla warfare bit, doesn't he? Where he disappears.
Yeah.
And this one, because there's no trees, he obviously does it in the sand and stuff. And some of it where he's in that cave is awesome. Like he's running around the shadows and all that.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I think it's so good. I prefer this one to 2. I have to admit. But it almost does verge on parody. Because there are bits in this that are so ludicrous. That, it's like you say, watching it now, this time, the bit where they have this weird dead sheep game of football on the back of horses.
Where did he learn to ride a horse?
Yeah, it's never... Yeah. Well, again, I want to know what the hell went on in Vietnam that they're like, trot. This is called a canter. But he's obviously done all this and he's learned all this stuff. But he can, he plays this game and he wins their respect or their sort of like, But it goes on for like almost 10 minutes. And I'm just like, oh, move on. Like, this does not need to keep happening.
It's I like how he can plan an attack on a Russian fortress using 4 rocks as well.
Yeah. And one guy that's been inside who just seems to know where everything is. Where are the prisoners? Here. Where are the artillery? Here. Like, how do you... must be
3 of us are going to go in and
What were you in this fortress that you know all this? I was a cook.
I was the cleaner.
Yeah. Weird. But yeah, so both Rambo 2 and Rambo 3 were nominated for Razzies. Oh. So Razzies obviously being the opposite of the Oscars. These are for the worst possible film. So Rambo 2 was nominated for 7. It won 4, including Worst Picture, Actor and Screenplay.
How dare they?
Worst actor won by both Richard Crenna and Sylvester Stallone. Amazing. Rambo 3, it was nominated for 5 and it only won 1. So, try harder next time. And Stallone won worst actor. And for both of them as well, for both 2 and 3, David Morrell wrote the novelisation.
Okay.
So you can't get... This is the weird bit. You can't get a novelisation of the first film because obviously the original base novel ends with the alternate ending. It ends with Rambo dying.
Yes.
He commits suicide. Or Trackman kills him. So Morrell writing the second and third one, you go, if you were to be in a shop and go, First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3, you'd pick them up and you'd read the first one
and go, hold on a minute.
Wait a minute. I've got 2 more books to read. They're not they must be supernatural thrillers.
It's just somebody with the same name.
Yeah. So for you then, anything that stands out for you in Rambo 3?
It's the only thing that can stand out. And that is Rambo driving a tank into a helicopter. Not only has he just defeated the entire Russian army, or at least a good section of the Russian army, enough that, enough soldiers as it takes to invade a country.
Yeah.
After he's sort of, him and these peasants on horseback have taken out tanks and jeeps and whatever else, the one last thing that needs doing is taking out the captain, and what better way to do it is to have a game of chicken with a tank and a helicopter.
Yeah.
In which the tank wins, clearly.
Yeah.
And, has there been a better death in cinema history?
That's what I mean. This is what I mean with this film. It's so ridiculous. It's like the most 80s over-the-top action film at that point. It's incredible. I think that's why I like it so much, because it is so silly. Like, there are parts of this film when you sort of think, all right, they are trying to get a message. Again, they've got this thing about Russians invading, and Troutman talks to when they're torturing Troutman, and he talks about the commitment of the Afghan rebels. He said there's a really poignant line in this. It's really quite important when he says these guys, they don't quit. They've got nothing to lose. They won't stop fighting. You can't beat an army like that. We've already had our war like this.
Yeah.
And even when you're watching now, you're thinking, well, you can have another. But, it's that thing of they're trying to hammer home this thing of all this stuff about the Afghan rebels and all sort of thing. You think, okay, again, you can try and get your message home and great. But on top of that, the action is ludicrous and it's so silly.
It's only just occurred to mind now. Take the beginning and end of each film, and the biggest difference. So the beginning of First Blood is this loner who's sad and upset because his friends died, and at the end, he has a bit of a breakdown.
Yeah.
Character hasn't travelled that much distance.
No, but it's underlined. It's there's an arc.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Start and end of 2. You're taking a prisoner out of a prisoner camp, who at the end anti-government and blows up a bit of a government base.
Yeah.
Again, there's that arc, but end of 3. A peaceful man you've taken from a monastery, driving a tank into a helicopter.
Yeah. Well, the thing you're totally right, right? Because the thing about this, most film arcs, when you see character development, it's that thing of it's betterment, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is you start at one point and you get better. And it starts in the first film with a guy who isn't in a great place, and he's obviously going to visit his friend, and he's looking for a place in the world. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So he's not in a great place, but he seems sort of he's looking for peace, but he's clearly got an underlying anger. By the end of the third film, when they're driving away in a jeep, having killed hundreds of people.
Yeah. But this is where I got confused. Is the third one they go home together with the plan of going back to America.
Because they go off in the jeep. So they're in this jeep driving away, and they're cracking jokes, and all of a sudden it has come full circle, and Rambo appears to have completely come to terms with the fact he is a killing machine.
It's Troutman.
It's Troutman. He's a bad influence.
Troutman's a bastard.
He is. Totally. Because this thing of like, all I could
I'm
see...
not spending all this time investing training and whatever else in you for you to turn into a manic depressive.
Yeah,
and make you will kill people, Rambo.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
There's a part of me that actually wonders, going back to them now, if this is a conspiracy. And Troutman's like, no, we invested in him.
Yeah.
He'll work for us. Because I can see that like by the third film, he goes back with Troutman, and he's almost like, by the time they get back on the plane, he's like, we've got another mission for you.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't surprise me if, like, that's it. There's just, if it wasn't just that cycle of violence then after 3 that he's come to terms with, is like, yeah, all right, let's go blow up some of the brown people.
Can't beat 'em,
Who's America's new enemy?
Yeah.
Rambo 4, I mean, you could have seen it. Rambo 4 in early 90s would have been Gulf War, would have been the Arabs, would have been the oil, there'd have been something. The fact it never happened, I find slightly surprising, really.
Well, if you made it now, it'd be North Korea, wouldn't it? He'd go and assassinate Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. Don't tell me that the Expendables probably won't in the next film.
Well, who knows?
But obviously, so they drive off into the sunset, as a happy couple, into action movie heaven, and we hear nothing from Rambo for 20 years. So the rights were sat with the that company, Caro Loco production company. I know the symbol. It's one of the things I've never been able to pronounce it, but I've known the symbol because you'll see it on all these films for years.
Like the C's?
Yeah, the C's and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They obviously went bust. They sold their rights to Miramax in the 90s.
Oh.
And then Miramax kept trying to make a 4th Rambo film, and Stallone was like, no, I'm done. I don't want to make any more Rambo films. I've got nothing more to say with that character. And so they thought it was a lost leader. So they were like, we've got these rights, we can't do anything with them. Let's see if we can make some money off them, because they're never going to make anything with them. So they sold them to another company called Millennium Films, thinking, I've just made some money off those rights. Mugs, they're never going to make anything of it. And there's within a year of them selling, Stallone was back going, got a story, I want to tell this story with Rambo. So they made Rambo. Now this again was in the period when Stallone was just like, take that last name and make a film. I've just made a film, all right, with Rocky in it. What's it called? Balboa. Right, so what do you want to do now? I want to do a film about Rambo. What are you going to call it? Rambo. But the last one was called Rambo 3. Can we call this one Rambo 4? No, it's just called Rambo.
Just Rambo.
That doesn't make sense. Well, we're going to make it. So we get Rambo in 2008. When did you see it at the cinema, or did you?
I saw this at the cinema. Yeah, because I remember after seeing Rambo, going back and reading about it, because knowing that they were going to make a new one, incredibly excited about it, and going back afterwards, seeing it and saying, I wonder where it came from. And I know there was another idea for a story, which was some girl getting kidnapped by like the Mexican cartel, and Rambo was going to go and rescue her.
It was going to be Rambo on drugs,
and Stallone turned it and said, "No, I want Rambo belongs in the jungle." Yeah, that's where Rambo should be. He belongs
it was
in the
apparently
jungle.
going to be. It was going to be closer to like Rambo's come to terms with his thing. He's living a life in America, and he was going to be like a farmer or something. And a friend was going.
Friend's daughter or one of the maids, like people working in the house, and their daughter got kidnapped or something. And then we can discuss one of the concepts that was bandied around from Rambo 5 at some point. The fact that I'm so glad never went anywhere.
The fact that we even get to talk about it is so good, though.
But yeah, saw it at the cinema, and I think people try and argue a political message behind Rambo.
I think Stallone would argue there's a political message behind Rambo.
I think people argue like from an American point of view. Obviously it's about Burma and the civil war that's been going on in Burma for God knows how long. Which I suppose the film brought that to a lot of people's attention.
I think that's more of importance. It raises the awareness.
I've heard of Burma.
Yeah.
But I'd never, I wouldn't have had any idea that there was any sort of
not a place to visit, I'd say.
I think there was Americans arguing that it was about American intervention in
Yeah.
other people's conflicts, and it was kind of a statement on Iraq and Afghanistan and their wars. You know, should we be there?
We shouldn't be involved.
Yes,
sort of
this
thing.
is why Americans should
Yeah.
be involved. You know, we go and we sort everything out and make
Yeah.
everything good again. And I suppose, you know, I don't necessarily think Stallone had that in mind. It was the raising the awareness of the conflict in Burma, but it's just out and out bloodshed.
It is.
It's just.
No, it is. It is. It's bizarre.
You talk about the blood count, the body count jumps again up to 200.
200 and something.
200 and something in this one. I've read, you know, it's almost doubled in every film. So if they were to make Rambo 5, you're looking at about 500 killings.
Yeah. It'd be just to get the body count up, it'd have to be 3 hours long, and the last hour is just him shooting people. But that's it. I think you're right there. This is just bloodshed. But the thing is, like you said, this film, it raises awareness of the Burmese conflict, because I watched it today actually, but the opening credits of the film,
Yeah.
the first 2 or 3 minutes, is just news footage of things that have gone on. And some of it is brutal, like decapitated bodies and burnt bodies and people being shot and tortured. So so that's sort of But the carnage in that news footage almost like sets the bar for what you're going to have to, like, what you're
because
set
it's
to.
the news footage, isn't it? And then it's into those militants basically playing a game with the villagers and getting them to cross.
They put like landmines in a rice field, and then you have to run through it.
And those that made it across, they shot anyway.
Yeah, it was a complete farce.
And it's just that, I think, it's that statement.
These
are
are
brutality that these people are facing.
Yeah, they're trying to set them up as like, these are almost as evil as, like, concentration camp level Nazis.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. The problem I have with this whole thing of this has a message, and that's like, it raises awareness, right? And then you get this whole thing of, it almost has, it feels American because it carries the message of might is right. Because you have the Christian aid workers going in, and they get, for want of a better phrase, fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, they go in, they get kidnapped, they get shot at, they get beaten and whatever. One of them's going to get raped, and there's all that kind of jazz going on, right? And then again, it's like you say, it takes the American icon Rambo to go and sort things out. And it's that it carries that message then of peace isn't, in the song that accompanies the film, peace in our time is the long road and all this other stuff. But then in this film, it's like, no, you need to be blowing the shit out of people to teach them a lesson.
You can only match violence with violence. That's the only.
And that's exactly But and maybe that's just us. Maybe that's what I take from it. Maybe that's something wrong with me. But that's what it tells me, is that you can't go in with you can't go into one of these situations and be helpful to the people, because you've got to fight might with might.
Well, the thing, it's not only just the other characters in it, it's Rambo himself, isn't it? He's trying to live this peaceful life, and doesn't work. In order for him to resolve anything, he can't do it peacefully.
Yeah.
He's got to.
And who does he dream about? Who pops up in his dream?
Troutman.
Troutman's
there again.
It is, and it's that dream of Troutman giving him that message from the past that makes him go after them.
Yeah.
My God. He's like the Mickey of the Rambo series.
He keeps trying to pull it back, doesn't he? In this one, I mean, I think he's Stallone is trying to not necessarily erase what happened in Rambo 3.
Yeah.
But Rambo goes back to being a very sort of introvert character again. He just wants to be left alone. I would almost say
that. I think, I'm trying to remember just from watching today, there's the scene where he does have the dream, when it's all the flashbacks, and it definitely has First Blood, it definitely has Part 2. I'm not sure if it has anything from Part 3, because I almost think that you're supposed to think this is actually a follow-on from 2. It almost ignores 3.
Yeah. Well, it's not the first time he's done it.
No, that's true.
Look at Rocky Balboa compared to what happened to Rocky 5.
Yeah, completely ignored.
Where did that go?
Yeah, completely ignored. Yeah, everything in that.
I think
gone.
maybe it is just Stallone getting into his 60s and regretting some of the decisions he made in the past. I think I'll just make it right with a new film.
Yeah. But yeah, like him, you get the mercenaries. It is that thing of him being just the older, the statesman. He feels The one thing I would say is, though, and I sort of see it a little bit more in the Expendables as well, and I think this just comes with age, like, he's incredibly comfortable just being who he is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He knows now. He's like, yeah, we've got to the stage where I can just have fun with this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to be doing other stuff. That doesn't mean he's not in shape, because there's bits in Rambo where he's like running through the forest and he's doing all this stuff, and I'm like, Jesus, man, you are in shape to be doing that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah. What was he when he filmed it? 63? Something like
he was
that?
in his early to mid 60s, yeah. So again, he commits himself to doing it. But let's talk about the only thing that, like you said, that's worth talking about in Rambo is probably the last 40 minutes. Because everything before that is pretty much like, it's almost like a trailer. You get little flashes of violence,
Yeah.
and then it just goes.
Yeah. And it goes off big style.
Yeah. And it starts with him literally ripping out someone's throat with his bare hands. Which is immense.
I'm trying to remember that bit. All I get is him stood on the Jeep
with the machine gun.
With that gun.
Yeah.
And, it literally taking whole chunks of people off. Heads exploding, arms coming off.
I mean, it's again, it gets that cartoon level of violence where you're like, I don't believe this. I can't believe this is the case. It's too ridiculous.
Yeah, because you get it at first, don't you, when the militants invade the village.
Yeah.
And there's a decent amount of bloodshed there. And some pretty graphic violence. But yeah, that last bit, the image of just
him behind that
popping off and just and the death of the bad guy actually is quite not tame.
No, but it's brought down a level.
But the fact that he's used this machine gun, again, when you look back at like Rambo 2 when he explodes the bad guy with his exploding arrows, and then Rambo 3 when he drives the tank into the helicopter, and this one he takes out the bad guy just by...
He lops his head off, doesn't he?
No, he stabs him.
Oh, that's right.
The guy's sort of trying
Puts
to run
him up
away,
against a tree.
and he just appears from around the tree.
Yeah.
Puts the knife in his belly and then slices out.
And
you
as he
see
falls,
him,
he guts him,
you
doesn't
see
he?
the guts come out, but it's quite
compared to the others.
Compared to the
he's not blown up.
Guy, it's pretty mellow.
Yeah, he doesn't get blown up. He got away easy on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing in this one, again, like it being cartoony, and when I read about it, when I did the research and stuff, they were talking about like, oh, what things to do? Well, you've got to have extreme violence and all this other stuff, and I get it to an extent.
Yeah.
But how fast and powerful does an arrow have to be to hit you and literally knock you off your feet? And in one case, it literally takes someone's head off. He's got the bow and arrow, and not only is he accurate as so he's like Hawkeye level accuracy, but like these bow and arrows are like literally like blowing people off their feet. And when I'm watching that, I'm like, I really want to enjoy this film, but it's difficult.
And maybe it's a trick learned from the what is it, Scorpion King. When he's pull it, and then he pulls it just that little bit further.
Yeah. That's true. He watched the Scorpion King.
He watched the Scorpion King and thought, anything Dwayne Johnson can do, I can do better.
Yes, anything Dwayne.
I'm the original.
If anything Dwayne can do, I can do better.
It does. It still has that level of ridiculous. I think it's obviously an attempt to be a more serious, closer to the original Rambo, the first two anyway.
The tone is a lot closer to the first one than the others.
It's the attitude of Rambo and his kind of personality and the way he behaves is closer to the first one.
Yeah, a lot closer.
Obviously the setting is back to the second one, and it's out in the jungle and that guerrilla warfare. But it does still carry some of the ridiculousness of 3 with it.
It really does. I mean, that's the thing, and that's what I think why it works in some ways and not in others. Because I think it's a little uneven in that respect. Because I actually think if they toned down the cartoony violence a little bit in that last third, in that finale, I think it would be more impactful than it is.
Yeah. Because
you've gone from that to that. But if you kept it realistic, you'd still be like, oh my god, that's crazy. But this was at the same time he made the Expendables, and obviously so he was into that proper like retro ball to the wall action.
Which one do you reckon he has the least lines in, 1 or 4?
Oh, good question. I'm actually does
Does that count as a? Do you reckon that's in the script?
yeah 4 pages of that just for the finale Rambo because that's all he does for like the end finale. I actually think he says less in 4. I'm sure he must do because there are whole sections where he's on that boat. And
when the mercenaries are chatting away and they're trying to goad him, aren't they? And he just doesn't say a word. He speaks to the
blonde girl.
Speaks to the woman. I don't know.
You're right. I mean, there's sections where he talks, but it's always to give instruction or to give answers. Like, he barely talks in it. Like, line for line. I think he talks. But then he's not. Even in the other 2, like 2 and 3, he's never really. He's not exactly a gossip, is he? Really? He's not.
No, he's not.
I can't see him being great dinner conversations. So, but yeah, I the funny thing is, you say about the tone of the first one. I got this. This is a quote from David Morrell. So David Morrell never did a novelisation for the first one, for the last one. So this is what he said. This is the first time that the tone of my novel, First Blood, has been used in any of the movies. It's spot on in terms of how I imagine the character, angry, burned out, and filled with a self-disgust because Rambo hates what he is and yet knows it's the only thing he does well. And I think that does show in the film. There's a point in the film where he's tried to be calm, and then the pirates, the Burmese pirates board the boat, and he keeps trying to talk him out of it. He's like, no, I'm just taking these people, just leave us alone. And they see the blonde woman, and they're like, give us the woman, or we'll basically kill you. Give us the woman. He's like, no, you can't kill them. And then when he just turns, takes the gun and kills all of them, and the guy's like, you can't kill these people. And he's like, I just saved your life.
Yeah.
But you can see it on his face that he's like, I really did everything I could to prevent this.
Well, that's it, I think it's the same. He doesn't want to do it in 1. He feels like he's forced into it.
Yeah. 2,
I think he'd quite happily spend the rest of his life in prison.
I think so.
But he's dragged out of it. And
I personally think there's a part of me that wonders, is he like, he's like, I know where I stand here. I think there's a line cut there. Like, I know where I stand here. I've got my bitches.
Yeah.
I've got myself some prison boys.
Yeah.
He's happy there.
But he's kind of forced into it.
Yeah. He's guilted into it.
Yeah. The third one, he's kind of feels obliged to do it. And then the fourth one again, it's him doing what he thinks is right. You could,
I think the fourth one,
there is a conscience.
The fourth,
to Rambo.
The fourth one is the only one I would say where there's a real moral imperative to do good. Because even the second one, they're like, oh, we left our boy. We want to make sure we didn't leave our boys behind, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it. They're people he's fought with. He knows what they're going through. He knows what they've been through.
Yeah.
And his government basically telling him to do it. The third one, it's the guy who, as we've said, is almost his father figure.
Yeah.
So he's,
worst possible father.
The fourth one, he's got no emotional attachment to these people.
No.
He doesn't know them from Adam.
It's a moral. It's a moral thing, isn't it?
It's a moral thing in the fourth.
That's how I'd say it is. So really, okay, let's sort of round this out because there's actually as always happens, and I don't know who owns the rights nowadays, but as always happens, would you be adverse to a modern retelling or a remake of, I would say, First Blood?
Yes.
So you wouldn't want...
I wouldn't want... I don't even... I know you mentioned it earlier. I'm not even sure I would like the idea of like a prequel.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because
it's something
it's that character of Rambo where it's almost that enigmatic.
Yeah, you don't need to know
where
it.
Come from, all you need to know is that this is a man who's fought for his country and been let down by his country, and the only thing he knows how to do well is kill people.
Yeah,
and it's the only thing he actually, it's the only thing he's confident in being able to do as well. This is bread and butter, so to speak. So no, I wouldn't like to see. I don't think I think Rambo's done. I know there's talk of a TV series.
There's always talk of different things.
There's been talk of the 5th film.
We'll get onto that in a minute because there is actually a remake happening. It's an Asian remake. I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
They're Bollywood. There's
Bollywood,
yeah.
And all of the things a poster for it, and it's just some ripped Asian guy. And the plot is, again, like he comes home from being in the army, being in the war, goes back to his village and finds that his village is being tormented by whatever, and he ends up being, after some event, he ends up being chased into the hills or the mountains or whatever. And it's a similar thing to the first one. Do you know what? Like, because it would be so different, like, you know, it'd be, it's even from a cultural point of view, it'd be so different. Yeah. I would be interested in seeing that. Just so, like, I know this character so well that I could completely. It's not like an American remake, you know. It's not Gerard Butler or Chris Pine playing the character. It's going to be some other guy in a completely different cultural context. I'm almost like, okay, this could be interesting. It's almost the other side.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm intrigued.
I don't know. Because apologies. I'm not meaning to offend anyone, and I am ignorant about Bollywood. But the idea of Rambo suddenly breaking out into song and dance in the middle of an action scene.
I'm not sure if it would have the full Bollywood experience. I don't know.
I don't know. Do they make Bollywood films without the singing and dancing? I don't know.
I assume so. I think so. I don't know. It's something. Again, like I said,
I hear Bollywood, and I just think, these elaborate dance scenes with the music and the singing and whatever else.
I don't know. Good question, I suppose. Something worth looking into. I like it though from a cultural context of being
tweet 20th Century Geek hashtag Bollywood Rambo.
Yeah. let me know. Let me know. But yeah, so there's that, and then obviously the other thing that's happening, because usually it's been brought to an end. The one thing I want to talk about Rambo before we close off on the films that exist is the very, very end of Rambo is him going home. Now he goes and he's called John J. Rambo.
Yes.
But when he goes home and there's a letterbox and it's Rambo, so they just haven't got. They're not very imaginative. So John J. and So, but he goes home, right? And obviously you don't know what happened at the end of 3.
No.
Between 3 and so there's been 20 years between the end of 3 and 4, and they talk about going back to the States and stuff. And in 4, someone just say to him about, like, have you got people at home? He's got maybe your father, and I'm thinking, you're in your 60s. So your father must be at least in his 80s.
Stallone's in his 60s. Rambo's not in his 60s.
Well, he has to be in order for the timeline to work. For Vietnam and stuff.
That's very true, actually.
So he has to be in his 60s in order for it to work. So when he's walking down that path, right, and he's obviously aged a lot, and I was thinking, like, would I reckon if I saw Stallone from First Blood to Rambo, which is like 30 plus years.
He's wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, he's wearing the same clothes. They've lasted very well.
They have done well.
So when he's walking down that thing into that farm, and he knocks on the door, I was just like, I want to know what that first conversation was like.
Maybe that's where he learned how to ride a horse.
Oh, very good point, actually. Yeah. There you go. That's part of his history.
There you go.
That's part of his history. He's come from a farming background. But I do wonder, like, he goes back to that farm.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like...
Where have you been?
Where you been?
What have you been up to?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Have you got 5 minutes? So, yeah, it's a nice ending because he's going home, but I still feel it's a bit like... Can you be like, yes? It's like, I'm John. And you'd be like, hello, John. What do you want? So there's all that. I'm also curious as like how he got back. Because he's been there for 20 years. Like, does he have? I don't think he has a passport.
I doubt he has a passport. That's very true.
So I'm not sure how he got back into America.
Yeah.
Although if you listen to Trump, he probably just came up from Mexico hauling a bunch of drugs.
Yeah. But no. But I think he's even brought full circle, hasn't he? You look at that closing scene of Rambo, and it is just a complete mirror of the opening scene.
And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a close, isn't it? And it's supposed to be the close. So just before we get onto that final film. Or the potential film. I did a Twitter poll today. I've got 80 plus votes. So
I voted.
Oh, did you? Good
man.
Voted. So what we've got is, we had the 4 films, and it was basically, which one is the best? Which one's your favourite? So, I'm assuming you can probably guess which one came out first. It's always the way. So, First Blood, part 1, came out with 57% of the votes as number 1.
Okay.
Rambo, all capital letters, came out second with 25%. And then 2 and 3 just drop. So First Blood Part 2 came in third with 11%, and then Rambo 3 comes in with 7%. So yeah, so that shows that sort of First Blood Part 1 is definitely the, obviously by a long shot. It is out and out probably the best of the series, and I'd say it's more than an action film. It's a good movie.
It is.
I'd recommend it. I know we've spoiled stuff, but I'd definitely recommend anyone goes and sees it.
In all fairness, if you're got an interest in the 20th century culture and you haven't seen Rambo, then there's something wrong with you anyway.
Agreed. No, because you're right, aren't you? Because it is a milestone of 20th century.
Like I said, I think I'm always going to have an affinity and a connection with number 2 because I recall from my childhood that's the first one I remember seeing. And, just talking about it now and reminding me of that toy machine gun I had, which I am going to scour eBay for. See if I can get.
I will tweet a picture of Rambo related toys.
It took me back. I remember.
There's a couple of guys, right? There's a podcast which I really enjoy, and I've spoken to the guys a couple of times. But the Launchpad podcast, Matt and Aaron off the Launchpad, they did an episode recently. It was all about inappropriate cartoons, which is where we sort of talked about Rambo and RoboCop. But they did one about toys from their childhood. And I'm going to be sending them that picture just to remind them, tie the two together. Like, look, here's inappropriate toys from, directed at kids from an R-rated film. Buy your own M60 machine gun. Yeah. I'm so pleased that you knew about. I'm so pleased I now know about that.
What were we saying? That was 1987. I was 5.
Yeah.
If that merchandise, that's spun off from the film. That's a picture of that's
2.
That's the cover of Rambo 2.
Yeah.
On that box.
Yeah.
So that's 87, 88. I'm a 5-6-year-old.
Yeah. With
an M60 machine gun and a knife.
Yeah.
Just running around pretending to be Rambo.
Yeah.
At 6 years old.
Yeah.
What rating did you say it was?
It's an 18.
Okay.
I love the 80s.
Absolutely.
The 80s were so irresponsible.
In fact, I've even got a vague recollection of it might not be true. It might just be me piecing Rambo and my childhood together. But the toy knife that came with it, I even vaguely remember the end screwed off.
And it had the compass.
Oh. Just like Rambo's knife.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I know. I'm telling you. Well, we'll come back to it at some point. You're going to buy it, and we'll get it out there. So yes, you said before we'll finish off with an unused, I'd probably say thankfully unused, concept that was going to be used for Rambo 5. Now, I saw a headline for this when they were first talking about it, and the headline just said, "Rambo has beaten everything on Earth." That was it. And I was like, oh, well, what are they thinking then? What were they thinking, guys?
So the idea for Rambo 5 was going to be Rambo taking on a genetically mutated or cybernetic, some form of created beast made by scientists in the Arctic, and this beast had killed all the scientists in the Arctic and gone on a rampage, and so Rambo was going to go and sort it out. So,
yes, right, and you're probably going to get some of the ghost of Troutman was going to turn up, because we've gone into full weird sci-fi territory.
Maybe this genetically it was a maybe it had Troutman's brain.
Yeah, like RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
Right, I did some digging on this, right, and there's never been anything more than sort of like little bits of information. So that synopsis and bits and pieces have been released, right? But there was never a script. There was never they never finished a concept or anything like that. It was just this idea. However, I did find that there was a whole thing. There was an interview with Stallone, and I forget the guy's name, but he was one of these like the linked producers or something with it. And basically, what they said, they started with an idea. And the idea was, it led to that synopsis you just gave. Yeah. But it was at the time when there were lots of crossovers. So there'd been Alien versus Predator.
Yeah.
There'd been Freddy versus Jason. So they were that. And they were saying, who could Rambo go against? So one of the ideas that went down was who from another franchise could Rambo face off, and there was ideas of Rambo versus Predator, which I still think would be awesome. But Rambo versus Predator,
both very jungle based.
Yeah, there was Rambo versus Terminator. There were these ideas being bandied around of like, could we? Because the idea was again Stallone versus Schwarzenegger. Right? But at that point, Schwarzenegger was the governor of California and all those things. So they never went anywhere. And I think so. They boiled it down to what basically at the end sounds a bit like Rambo versus the Thing. But I thought, this idea of him going against something and going into sci-fi territory, I actually got quite excited by because I was like,
anything worse.
Oh no, because I was like, this is going to be car crash level awful. This is going to be Leprechaun in space level bad. Do you know what I mean? I knew what this was going to be, but it's almost one of those things.
It almost got a title, wasn't it? Like Rambo Hunted or something.
Something like that.
And then there was another title bandied around of Rambo Last Blood.
The Last Blood. That was one I saw a lot online. With Last Blood. Jesus. You know that someone in marketing's gone, you know that first one? Well... Yeah,
he'd still make a sixth one and come up and just call it John.
Well, yeah. JJ. Well, this is the thing. Like, all these, it's when they call things like Last Blood. The fact that I saw that and I saw this concept that went with it, it just told me it screamed desperate marketing ploy. But all I could think of was Jason 4, the final chapter. Freddy 6, the final nightmare. It was just like, Last Blood. You're like, this won't be the last one, because you know it's going to be shit, and you've got to do something else. I'm so glad they didn't make it. I almost wish though. It's one of those things that I almost wish someone had gone. Yeah, this would make a terrible film, but I wish someone would make a comic or something. Do you know what I mean? Just like flesh it out, because I think it's such a daft, silly idea.
So I think I was reading though that someone has. It's not going to be a Rambo film, but someone has picked up that idea about this.
Oh, it will not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me.
Of some description.
It wouldn't surprise me. It'll probably have someone like Gerard Butler or.
Yeah. I mean, Stallone's said now, hasn't he? That's it. He's done with Rambo. He's not taking him any further.
But he's talking about it in another. I know he's got it because he's got. Well, basically,
he's got Barney Ross now.
That's it. Because let's be honest, right? And you watch Rambo 4, he wanted to close that down because Rambo is a really depressing character. Like, he might be great for action, but he's not exactly the life and soul of the party, is he?
Not at all.
And like I say, Rocky, the Rocky story is done because there's no more. You can't get him in the ring anymore, and so he has to pass on to John Boyega. No, not John Boyega, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
And he's great, and I loved Creed, and I'm actually quite looking forward to Creed 2. I think it'll be interesting. So Barney Ross, as far as I'm concerned, is almost become like Stallone's hobby.
Yeah.
He's like, I love doing action films, and I want to have fun doing them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do these.
Well, this is it. He's just...
I'll get my mates in and we'll have a laugh.
That's exactly it. And anyone who remembers anything about 80s action films can just see how tongue-in-cheek those films are. Yeah.
Anyone who moans about how bad the Expendable films are, like, just don't watch them, because you know exactly what you're getting into.
Exactly. There are some films that do deliver a message, and there are some films that carry a poignant purpose. There are other films that are just switch your brain off and just sit back and enjoy it, and don't try and read anything into it. There's nothing to read into it. Just watch a load of muscle-bound freaks.
It is. And I love the fact, and I have to say, right, I know this is a Rambo thing, but we'll round it out by saying I really enjoy the Expendable films. I think they're daft. Absolutely. I think they're stupid. I love the fact that they brought in Jean-Claude Van Damme as a villain. I love the fact they brought in Mel Gibson as a villain. Yeah. And I just thought
Mel Gibson made a great villain.
He was huge. He was a hench. Brilliant. I loved it. But the thing I would say about Barney Ross is Rambo without the guilt.
Yeah.
Barney Ross is Rambo at the end of Rambo 3.
Yeah, do you know what? If I wouldn't like to see the other side, but if you could turn Rambo into his angel and his demon, or you split personality, you separate.
Yeah.
Barney Ross would be the good side of Rambo. I wouldn't like to see The other bit that came away.
Cobra. Cobretti.
Yeah, even Cobra's got a bit of a sense of humour.
Yeah, you need some. Yeah, there must be a really dark side of.
It's a really depressing side.
Eeyore.
Rambo is a combination of Eeyore
That's it.
and Barney Ross.
That's it. Oh no, I'm expendable. That's what it is, yeah. Oh no, Troutman wants me to kill more people. Yeah. So there we have it then. We've covered the Rambo franchise. I would say that the 4 films are of varying quality, but all worth a watch.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say go watch that series. If you love action films, you've got to watch. These are films you've got to have watched. If you call yourself a modern action fan and you haven't watched the Rambo series, then you haven't done your homework. You need to watch these films. And I'm sure they're available on all kinds of streaming services, legal or none. And you need to go out and watch them. Any last thoughts? Any last thoughts before we wrap up on John J. Rambo?
No, I think we've covered him pretty well, but I'd like to come back and do Rocky and Expendables.
I think we should. I think we should definitely.
Does Expendables fit 20th century?
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, because
It does in a way.
It does.
Because it pulls them all back.
It does, and I think it should be. Yeah, we'll do 80s action heroes via the Expendables, how it celebrates all their films, because it does, especially the nods. Everything from Arnie pushing out of a car saying, "I'm back." Just Chuck Norris doing a Chuck Norris joke.
Cobra dies.
Yeah. Everything like that. So I think we should. Yeah, we will. We will do we'll come back and we'll do the Expendables as a celebration of 20th century action films, and then we will do Rock. In fact, I tell you what, we will do a full-on Rocky retrospective in time for Creed 2.
Sounds good.
Creed 2's, I think, out in November this year. So we will watch those and we'll come back and do that. So thank you very much, guys. It's been great, John. You enjoyed it?
I have, actually. Yeah, it's been good fun.
Good.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. All 4 of you. I appreciate it. Right. Thank you very much, guys. And we'll catch up again soon. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was our Rambo retrospective. I hope you enjoyed it, and I think Gaz will be back in the future to talk The Expendables and Rocky. So we'll be having a bit of a Stallone special, probably come back later this year as Creed 2 comes out in November. Now, before you go, quick mention. If you want to get in contact with us, we are available on social media at 20th Century Geek. On Facebook, also under 20th Century Geek. Or if you want to email me, that's 20thcenturygeek@gmail.com. All open to any suggestions or any form of communication. All participation is welcome. And of course, the one thing I need to mention right at the end, we have a Patreon account. So please, if you want to keep this going and you think you want to donate in any form, all pennies are welcome. I appreciate them all. So check that out. Thank you very much. I will see you again next time.